information and reflection purposes only. It's not a substitute for psychotherapy, medical, or professional advice. Full disclaimer is in the blurb below.
Okay, so there's a silence that isn't peaceful, a silence that isn't restful. It's the silence of someone who's shut the door on you while sitting there 3 feet away. That silence is called stonewalling, or in Ireland, the silent treatment. And it's one of the most brutal ways a relationship can bleed out. It kind of goes like this. You're mid-conversation, your voice cracks with frustration or pain, and suddenly it's like you're talking to a brick wall. They're scrolling their phone, they're staring past you, they've checked out. It's not a pause, it's punishment. It's not space, it's complete shutdown. So here's the kicker. When stonewalling becomes the language of a relationship, intimacy doesn't just die, it suffocates. You are left on the outside alone. It's like looking in through glass while the other person sits in silence, pretending they don't hear you. So that's today's case file on relationship autopsies, death by silence, the autopsy of stonewalling. So stonewalling has stages and each one cuts deeper. The first stage is withdrawal. It begins as a simple dodge. They're tired, they're stressed. They just don't want to deal with it right now. Small retreats, easily excused. Then stage 2 is the wall. This is where it hardens. Now silence isn't temporary, it's tactical. They shut you out mid-conversation, walk out of the room as you're talking, refuse eye contact. The message is clear. Your words don't matter. Then there's the third stage, chronic silence. Eventually it becomes the default. Any attempt at difficult conversation triggers the same response, complete shutdown. Your relationships become a quiet war zone. No explosions, just the daily suffocation of not being heard and not being allowed to communicate. Stonewalling isn't just passive, it's active control. It's one person dictating the terms of communication by refusing to participate, and nothing corrodes intimacy faster. So why does it happen? Why do people dish out the silent treatment? Why does stonewalling take place? Psychodynamically, it's both a defense and a weapon. On one side, it's rooted in avoidant attachment. The stonewaller learned early that closeness can feel dangerous, so they protect themselves by shutting down when intimacy gets too real. Silence is their shield. On the other side, it's also very punitive. Silence becomes a way to control, to dominate, to make the other person squirm. The Gottmans famously called stonewalling one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in relationships because it doesn't just avoid conflict, it literally assassinates connection. So Donald Winnicott would call it an anti-relational act. The true self is absent and the false self hides behind silence to avoid the risk of exposure. Wilfred Bion would call it an attack on linking. So communication gets severed, so truth can never get in. And for the partner on the receiving end of this, it's absolutely devastating. So Bowlby would remind us that humans are wired for a response. A baby cries, the mother has to respond and soothe. When the adult partner cries and the other turns away or walks away or leaves, the nervous system interprets it as serious danger. And that's why stonewalling feels like abandonment in real time, because psychodynamically it really is. So let's cut straight into it, right? The silent treatment isn't space, it isn't self-care, it isn't needing time to cool down, it's punishment, it's severe control, and it's the most cowardly form of cruelty dressed up as restraint. When someone gives you the silent treatment, they're not taking a moment, they're putting you in emotional solitary confinement. They're locking you in a psychological cell where you bang on the walls, desperate for contact, and they sit outside pretending they can't hear you. That's not avoidance, it's sadism in slow motion. So why is it so effective? Because, as I said, humans are totally wired for a response, as Bowlby said. Attachment means I cry, you come, I reach out, you answer. That cycle is survival. When you break it, the nervous system panics. And that's why the silent treatment feels like you're losing your mind. It's not dramatic, it's biology. The silence registers in your body as danger, abandonment, and death. And the person dishing it out knows this, whether consciously or not. The wall is their weapon. Every unanswered text, every blank stare, every heavy silence across the table, it's all a way of saying, I control this space. I decide when you're seen, when you're heard, when you matter. The worst part, the target of the silent treatment almost always internalizes the blame. They start to believe they're the problem. So you might comb through conversations, you rehearse apologies for things you didn't even do. You shrink yourself smaller and smaller in the desperate hope they'll break the silence. And when they finally do, they get to play savior. They hold the keys to your release. The punishment worked. It's emotional abuse. It's ruthless because it's deniable. Unlike shouting or name calling, the silent treatment hides under the guise of calm. If you call it out, they can say, I was just taking space. If you cry, they say, oh, you're overreacting. The cruelty of silence is that it gaslights. It gaslights as it crushes you. And let's be blunt, the silent treatment is contempt. So the Gottmans, they spent their life predicting divorce. They called contempt the single biggest predictor of relationship death. So when someone withholds words, they're withholding humanity. They're saying, you don't deserve a response. You don't deserve recognition. You don't deserve me. So that's not conflict resolution. It's psychological warfare. So I've sat with individuals who've been stonewalled for days, weeks, sometimes months. I've sat with couples who've done it to one another. Do you know what happens? They wither slowly. They stop speaking up. A big chasm is generated in the relationship. They stop asking for anything. They begin to live individual lives. They stop believing they deserve love. Silence becomes a slow erasure of the self. And here's the harsh truth. If someone is giving you the silent treatment, they are not protecting peace. They're punishing you. They're teaching you a lesson, a very twisted lesson. They're making you pay in the currency of isolation. And the longer you accept it, the more it rewrites your nervous system to believe that that's all that you deserve. So in Ireland, stonewalling has so many different cultural flavours. The Irish baptise it as the silent treatment, and generations were raised on it. Say nothing and keep the peace. They think they're avoiding conflict when really they're suffocating intimacy. Silence is part of Irish heritage. Stonewalling is everywhere now. So ghosting is just stonewalling exported into dating apps, blocked numbers, unread messages, a digital wall. It's the same dynamic, scaled up by technology. Culturally, we often romanticize silence. We say, still waters run deep, or we call someone the strong silent type. But in relationships, silence is not strength, it's corrosion. So with stonewalling, the language is absence. There are still phrases that orbit the silence. I don't want to talk about this. Translation, I don't want to face this. You're overreacting. Translation, your feelings make me uncomfortable, so I'll dismiss them. Whatever. Translation, this conversation is dead to me. Radio silence, the longest sentence anyone ever delivers. The cruelty is that stonewalling makes you doubt your own reality. When your words fall into silence, you start to wonder if you're crazy, dramatic, or impossible to love. That's how the wall wins. It makes you feel small. The cost of stonewalling is enormous. Relationships don't just die from cheating or fighting, they die from silence. The partner on the receiving end develops anxiety, insomnia, hypervigilance. They live in a permanent state of, am I crazy? They replay conversations at 3 a.m. trying to decode what on earth they did wrong. So over time, stonewalling breeds resentment and despair. You can't repair what you can't discuss. You can't build intimacy with someone who shuts the door every time you knock. And so the relationship just empties out. Two people sharing a house under one roof, but not sharing a life. Zero communication. Psychotherapists see this all the time. Couples come in saying that they don't fight, but the truth is far more lethal. They don't converse at all. There's no conversation. Silence has become the language of their marriage, and you can almost hear the love gasping for air as it dies its last breath. So here is what I want to say. The silent treatment is abuse. Okay, people can take space for 24 or 48 hours and come back, regroup and talk. When this lingers, right? This is not a bad habit. It's not Irish stubbornness. It's not needing space. It's abuse. And it's cowardly abuse because it avoids the real risk of having a deep conversation while inflicting maximum psychological damage. Far better an honest row that clears the air than a silence that rots everything to the foundations. Because when silence becomes punishment, love doesn't just fades, it absolutely suffocates. So the autopsy report here is cause of death is silence as punishment, avoidance as control, manner of death, asphyxiation of intimacy, contributing factors, avoidant attachment, cultural glorification of keeping the peace, and the coward's comfort in quiet. Silence is never neutral. It always communicates something. And in stonewalling, what it communicates is contempt. Better an honest row now than slow suffocation later. So that's today's relationship autopsy. Stonewalling, the death by silence. The slow suffocation of intimacy when one partner refuses to communicate. If you've ever been on the receiving end, know this. Your words matter, your feelings matter, and silence is not peace, it's avoidance, it's control, and it's the fastest way to kill love. So you've been listening to Soul Path Alchemy. I'm Annie. I'd really love if you would share an episode from this podcast with just one friend, someone who might need to hear something, one of the episodes covered. Every share helps. And wherever you are, I really hope you're having a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.